I'm rewatching Outlander from the beginning, and one thing I know for sure is that this show loves a parallel. So let's talk about my favorite parallel with this scene from episode 2. As always, this will have spoilers for the books and the TV show, so if you are looking to avoid those, please do keep on scrolling. So in episode 2, I've already touched upon this scene a little bit in particular, and how Claire has a breakdown of sorts, and all of her emotions that she has been keeping at bay throughout her journey thus far to Castle Leoch finally come out. And a lot of that is triggered, I would say, by Jamie's openness and vulnerability with her. But also because in this moment she thinks she's missing Frank quite a bit. I think she's also feeling a lot of other emotions that the show can't spell out, so to speak, but in the books there's more insight into Claire's headspace and how she feels about Jamie and the whole situation. And it really is our first glimpse into what their relationship dynamic will be moving forward, both in the short term and the long term. They are together for a long time in this show, and in season 7 episode 2, which I think is funny that they're both in the second episode of their respective seasons, we get a really beautiful parallel to this scene and the way that they behave with one another when Claire needs support. So in the book, this scene is born because Jamie thanks Claire for tending to his shoulder and tells her that she has a good touch. And then he reaches his hand out to touch her face and thinks better of it and withdraws the hand. And Claire notes that she feels this surge of intimacy between them. And she's coming to grips with that, and then looks around the room and notes all of the 18th century items and basically comes to the conclusion that that must be where she is in time, and wonders where Frank is and how he's feeling at this moment, what he'll do when she doesn't go back to Mrs. Baird's. And thinking about Frank was the last straw for Claire. This is when she snapped and starts really feeling her emotions fully for the first time. In the book, there's this quote where she says, as soon as she went through the stones, her ordinary life ceased to exist, and she had been assaulted, threatened, kidnapped, jostled, hadn't eaten for days, hadn't slept properly in over a day, and all of it just became too much for her to handle on her own, so she starts to weep. And Jamie immediately asks her what's wrong and takes her hand and tries to comfort her, and she tries to play it off like it's nothing, but then finally admits, my husband. We know this, we've seen this scene a million times before, but Jamie just goes into protective caretaker mode right away and tries to let Claire tell him how she's feeling without pressuring her to do so, which is similar to what's going on in episode 2 of season 7, when Claire has a similar type of breakdown, when all of her emotions that she's been bottling up finally bubble to the surface and she needs to release them, and Jamie recognizes that and encourages her to do so. I've already talked about this episode when I reviewed the most recent season, so feel free to go back and watch those videos if you want, but as a refresher, in the last scene of season 7 episode 1, Claire and Jamie talk about Tom Christie and him admitting his feelings to Claire. And in the show, they end that scene with Jamie going off to take his revenge on Richard Brown. But in the books, this scene where Claire has a breakdown happens immediately after, because Claire and Jamie are trying to be intimate with each other once again. In the books, Claire is crying because she's sad for Tom, who has just basically ended his own life to save her. She's sad about Malva, and she's thinking about Frank again. And Jamie tells Claire to weep for them because you can't keep a ghost at bay. And he wants her to grieve so that she can fully heal finally for all of these people. And without properly grieving, he knows that this will continue to be something that plagues her. In the show, Claire is crying for the loss of her family, for Fergus and Marsley, for the Mackenzies who have left. Jamie also mentions Faith and Myrta, his mother, his brother. They use this scene to talk about the family that they've lost and the people they have loved and lost, and encourages Claire to cry for them. This was obviously relevant to what had happened in the events of this particular episode, but we see Jamie comforting Claire in the same way in this scene too, where he pulls her closer and holds her with his arms completely around her and lets her weep. This expression on Jamie's face and putting him in this position where Jamie's face is closest to the camera and Claire's is opposite his further away from the camera so that we connect with Jamie's feelings in this scene, even though Claire's the one that's crying. They do the exact same thing here. It's also similarly lit with that warm lighting that we saw in the second episode of season 1. So all of those things are used to make us recall that similar scene from earlier on in the show when they are younger, and remember that even though so much time has passed between these two moments, the two of them at the heart of their relationship are very much still those young people who fell in love and know each other so well that after all this time, their ability to comfort one another has only strengthened in that way. To me, it's just another beautiful example of why in episode 2 this scene made me fall in love with the story and want to learn more about Jamie and Claire. And all this time later in season 7, when I get scenes like this between the two of them, it just reiterates to me why I fell in love with this show and the book. And this show also did a double whammy with episode 2 of season 7 because we get another parallel to the second episode of season 1. Jamie is tending to the horses and we see Claire kind of watching him, amazed at how he's so good with them and admiring him from a distance. And we get a very similar scene in season 7 where Claire is watching him walk a horse around in their stables and she has the same look of admiration on her face again. So plenty of parallels in later seasons with this second episode. I think this one is definitely a perfect episode for them to pull parallels out of, and they do it really wonderfully.